I am my parents' retirement plan.
There's a strong possibility that I am going to be my parent retirement account.
Are you the retirement plan? Rather than you going to them for help, they come to you for help.
Be honest. Are your parents really ready for retirement? I ask because the answer to this question could change your financial lifestyle. Remember, these are the same parents who taught us how to ride bikes and how to brush our teeth. But when it comes to money, especially retirement, the roles have quietly reversed. We're the gentle parent. Or maybe not so gentle, because sometimes they be getting out of pocket. As millennials, we have financial literacy literally at our fingertips. So as a result, we're required to help our parents navigate this new financial milestone, given our access to the info. If your mom and dad are not retirement ready, if their savings, investments, Social Security benefits, and income falls short, you become the family banker. That's why today you'll learn 6 gentle but effective steps to help your parents get retirement ready. This is Gage St, your financial safe space, empowering and encouraging career professionals to manage money intentionally. My name is Free, and you're important to me. Step 1, start the conversation. This is the most important, but often the hardest part. Talking about money with your parents can feel foreign. The same parents who used to hide Christmas presents in the closet, you're now asking them about their 401k. But here's the truth. You can't truly help them unless you know what their retirement roadmap looks like. Having the conversation helps them think about retirement from a holistic point of view. The conversation shouldn't feel like an interrogation. Start gently. Bring it up while walking a dog, running errands, or just lounging around in front of the TV on the weekend. Ask questions like, what does your ideal retirement day look like? Where would you want to travel or live? Any hobbies you want to pursue? What's a lifelong dream you'd finally do? Start with their dreams, not their dollars. People open up about goals way faster than their bank statements. Once they start opening up, gently shift the conversation to more realistic and numerical-based questions by asking, what age would you want to stop working? How much do you think you'll need to live comfortably? Have you checked your Social Security estimate lately? How much is sitting in your retirement accounts right now? What's the overall plan for healthcare? These questions aren't pushy. They actually show that you genuinely care and want to know to help them. The goal is simply to understand their situation, not judge it. Explain why this matters. Without a clear plan, they could run out of money or not have enough to meet basic living expenses as costs rise. This is what you're planning to avoid. A note to you, this isn't about criticism. It's about helping your parents secure the retirement they've worked so damn hard for. A simple 20-minute talk today can prevent years of future stress. Be sure to end the conversation with encouragement. Remind them that they deserve a peaceful and enjoyable retirement, and you just want to make sure they get it. Talking about money may feel uncomfortable the first time, but the second time, it's so much easier. And by the third time, you'll wonder why you waited so long. This conversation is key to everything else we're going to discuss in this video. And that's why it's step number 1. Now that you've broken the ice, the next step is to figure out what their full financial picture actually looks like. This is where we get into the numbers, the fun stuff. Step 2, get the full financial picture. Here's why this matters. You can't plan a road trip if your gas tank don't eat. And retirement is very much the same way. You and your parents need to know exactly what they're working with. No assumptions and no guesswork. Here's what your parents need to gather to get the full financial picture. Savings. Do they have any high-yield savings accounts, CDs, treasuries, bonds, and other savings? If so, how much? Make sure you get the banking information and also understand if there's any restrictions on withdrawals. Social Security. Have they checked their estimated Social Security benefits lately? You can get this for free at www.myssa.gov. A lot of our parents actually have no idea the expected amount they'll get in retirement from Social Security. But it's good to have a general ballpark understanding of what that number is so you can fold it into the retirement plan. Pensions. Pensions nowadays are very rare. However, being that our parents are older, they may actually have pensions either from their current job or from a prior employer. You want to be sure that if they have pensions out there, you know about them, they know about them, and it's folded into the full financial picture. Pensions are not as common these days, but it's definitely worth asking about. because again, they probably started working when they were more prevalent. Retirement account, 401ks, IRAs, whether it be Roth or traditional. The key here when it comes to retirement accounts is to make sure that you have a full understanding of how many accounts, if they have any investment accounts or any 401ks from previous employers that they need to roll over to an individual brokerage account. Bottom line, make sure they have an inventory of all their different retirement accounts and how much is in each. Any old jobs, any old rollovers, the key is to find them all. Investment accounts or real estate. Do they have personal investment accounts where they purchase stocks or mutual funds through a brokerage, or do they have real estate lying around? Their home, of course, if they own a home that they're living in, but do they have any land or any other homes that were passed down from previous generations? Make sure that you have all their income and asset sources listed in one place, in one document where you know the amounts, you know any fees associated, you know the tax implications and things like that. Next, you want to gather their debt. The biggest one is probably going to be mortgage or any home equity lines of credit. If your parents still are paying on a home, it's important to understand what that monthly payment is, what their interest rate is, how many more months or years they have until it's completely paid off. Any credit cards, personal loans, or auto loans. You want to understand what the interest rates are for these different types of loans that they may have. And then you also want to know what that minimum monthly payment is that they're paying every month, what the due date is, because what you're really doing is getting an accounting of what their debt is. And this is going to be vital when it comes to the next step. Be sure to understand when it comes to the debt, what their current balance due is, what the interest rate is, due date, fees. Gather as much information when it comes to their debt as possible. And any other debt. Some things that people don't necessarily think about is if they have medical debt, you want to be sure you have an accounting of that. If they pay IRS for like back taxes owed or current taxes owed, if they're on a payment plan, you want to be sure you have an understanding of that, as well as what those interest rates are, what the due dates are, what the minimum monthly payments are. The other things that I've seen in my experience working with clients that's not very popular, but sometimes your parents will draw down on life insurance policies and or their retirement accounts. So they may have loans associated with that life insurance or that retirement. And you want to be sure you have an understanding of whether or not they have them, then again, what those minimum monthly payments are. What I will say is that oftentimes when it comes to the 401ks, if it is a loan with an employer, their current employer, that is oftentimes being deducted from their paycheck. So you may want to go to their pay stub to actually see that information. It's a little bit more of a nuance, right? It doesn't happen generally speaking, but I have seen it, so I wanted to bring it up. I know I'm throwing out a lot to consider when it comes to getting the full financial profile of your parents, especially if you're doing this for both of your parents, especially if you are an only child and you're doing all this by yourself. Feel free to pause and take notes if you need to. I've linked some really good templates for you down in the description. When it comes to debt, it's super important to make sure you have a thorough understanding of what your parents' debt profile looks like, because debt oftentimes puts the biggest strain on our parents in retirement when they're already dealing with a fixed income. And that's really the key. That's the main point, because oftentimes people don't think about that. Once you stop working financially, and when it comes to the money that you have to work within that, right? Because you don't have that recurring paycheck or direct deposit that's hitting, other than Social Security if they're receiving that, which oftentimes ain't nearly enough. So having debt can turn an exciting and enjoyable retirement into a fairly strenuous and stressful one. We don't want that. Next, you want to understand their monthly expenses. Essentials like food, housing, transportation, whether that be car insurance, their phone bill. And then the other essential expense that of course is going to be probably a little bit more increased in retirement can be healthcare costs. You think about copays, deductibles, prescriptions, and things of the sort. Oftentimes when our parents retire, because they're getting older in age, those healthcare costs tend to increase as well. As such, when it comes to your parents' essential expenses, the key thing to really do is potentially audit their monthly expenses to figure out if there are areas in which, because their lifestyle is going to change, once that change happens, can they cut back, minimize, or eliminate anything on the essentials or non-essential side? just to make sure that their income balances out with what they're spending on a monthly basis. Finally, you want to find the gaps. By this point, you have a clear understanding of their income, you have an understanding of what their expenses are and what their debt is. That's really the three components: their income, which is super important, their minimum monthly debt payments, and then their monthly living expenses, both essential and non-essential. When you add up all guaranteed income and you compare that with their minimum monthly debt payments as well as their monthly living expenses, what's the result and how much? If their income is greater than their monthly debt payments and their monthly living expenses, good news, but the work doesn't stop there. If their income is less than their monthly debt payments as well as their monthly living expenses, no worries, because we'll talk about how to kind of recalibrate that in the video. Now you may say, well, Free, can I just get an app to do all this for me? I would say yes, but I would also say writing out their income, debt, and expenses will make it blatantly clear where they are. The numbers reveal the reality of the financial picture, which is what we're trying to get at. And this is the crucial part. This is where you want to start to create a sustainable retirement plan. Write it down, make it plain. Because with this information, you and your parents can create a plan that allows them to make real, impactful, and very important decisions as it pertains to their retirement and the life they want to live during that time. Step 3, eliminate debt before retirement. Retirement is supposed to be about fun and freedom, not minimum monthly payment. You'd be shocked to know how many people actually step into retirement with new car loans, new mortgages, revolving credit card debt. As a matter of fact, 93% of retirement age adults carry credit card debt into retirement. And what this translates into is their fixed income becomes consumed by minimum monthly payments, interest fees, and other fees. If you don't do nothing else, help your parents become debt-free before they step into retirement and stop working full-time. But how? Here's how you can guide them without causing a conflict at Sunday dinner. Build a debt profile. Now, this is actually building on what we talked about in step number 2, where you were gathering all their debt and you're writing it down. This is essentially going to carve out that section to make sure that you truly understand their different debt, all of it, whether it be credit cards, mortgage, home equity lines of credit, any personal loans, medical debt, IRS-backed tax debt, 401k or investment loans. The goal is to find it. There's a couple key things you want to be sure to include in this debt profile. 1, we got to know how much they owe. That's the total balance. Then it's important to understand what are their minimum monthly payments, because that is what we have to compare against the income. After you have those 2 items, it's important to understand what their interest rates are, any due dates, if they are incurring any late fees, or if they have incurred any late fees for the year, because that will give you an indication as to whether or not they're actually able to make their minimum monthly payments and how much interest has been charged. You could also go so far as to calculate their debt utilization ratio. Now, this may be helpful to understand credit-wise, but at this stage in their life, really shouldn't need to take on any new debt and thus really worry about their credit score. Not to say that it should be low, but I'm just saying they have the big stuff that they would need a high credit score for. Now, I will say, seeing all their debt in one place can be a very eye-opening experience. It can be very much a revelation, especially if they have never put it all in one place and you are just seeing it for the first time as well. Next, you want to prioritize paying off their high interest debt first. While they're still working, the key is to tackle that debt aggressively. Normally, I would say use the snowball method to eliminate debt by starting with the smallest to largest balance. However, that method is usually more beneficial for individuals that are 20 plus years before retirement. For your parents who are 5 to 10 years from retirement, what they really want to make sure they do is pay as little in interest as possible. So for them, instead of the snowball method, I would actually recommend the avalanche method, where they prioritize paying off debt based on the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. This will ensure that they pay the lowest amount of interest to these institutions as possible over time while they're tackling the debt. For example, let's just pick on credit cards because they are a nuisance. They are the worst offenders. Oftentimes you have high interest rate, check, ridiculous fee, check, and revolving balances that never end, check, check. They are retirement killers. I don't even know if I can say that word on YouTube. They are retirement unalivers. So encourage your parents to focus on these first. Car loans, mortgages, and other debts, tend to have lower interest rates, but credit cards, they got to go. Get the boom. If your parents can't pay off the credit cards quickly, then it may be best to think about consolidating the credit card debt to like a zero interest balance for a short period of time while they still have working income. Most importantly, your parents must become less dependent on debt and more dependent on cash as they step into retirement. Ideally, what's happening is while they're tackling becoming debt-free and like getting out of debt, they're also changing up their spending habits and their behaviors slowly but surely to rely less on debt and more on the cash that they're actually bringing in while they're working. I would go so far as to say they need to become completely cash dependent and avoid taking on any new debt, but I understand that's a personal decision. Next, they want to consider downsizing or refinancing. Here's the big one, and sometimes the one that's the hardest to bring up, and that's the house. The house done broke up many a home, many a family, and it don't gotta be that way. Discuss the long-term plan for the family home. The key thing to think about when it comes to putting your numbers hat on is you want to be sure that their income will support the cost of having that home. Not only the mortgage, but if there's any HOA fees, property taxes, monthly maintenance, and things of the sort. Oftentimes when our parents, they may have had the home like when we were younger, so it's been around for a while. Let's say, do they need a new HVAC in the next 2 to 3 years, a new roof within the next 2 to 3 years? And where is that money going to come from, right? So those are some of the things that you want to think about when it comes to the home conversation. If they don't have the mortgage, if the home is completely paid off, keep in mind that some of those costs, like property taxes, outlive the mortgage, right? They extend beyond the life of the mortgage. As long as the person still has a home, they're going to have to pay property taxes. So that's another thing to keep in mind is even if your parents own the home outright, will their income that they'll have in retirement be enough to cover those expenses that's going to stay with the home? Is the home included in a will, trust, or an estate plan? This is essentially just to make sure that it will be handled in accordance with what your parents' wishes are. Is there a plan to downsize and sell the home to make them more financially comfortable or just give them a change of scenery? The thing that I thought about when I was researching this particular section is sometimes as parents get older, they may want to go from a 2-story home to a ranch style home, or they may want to go from a 2-story home to a more communal aspect like a nursing home or assisted living. So just some questions and things to kind of talk about in that home conversation. What's important to really understand is that there is no one size fits all when it comes to having the conversation about what to do with the home, right? The key is to really be sure to take into consideration your parents' wishes and really just get a sense of like what they want their lifestyle to be and what that looks like in terms of the home. If the decision is leaning more towards potentially selling the home, listen, here's some things to consider. Be sure to weigh the cost versus benefit of actually keeping it versus selling it. What do those costs look like on both ends of those decisions? Then also it's super important. I cannot stress this enough, but you have to think about outside of just what's happening within the family, the housing market in and of itself. Because although the decision may be leaning more towards selling it, if the housing market is not a seller's market, then you may want to hold on to it for a while, right? For example, if interest rates are high, if the cost of taking on another mortgage, for example, if that is going to be a thing, which it really shouldn't be unless it's you taking it on, like you really want to weigh those factors and put the numbers out in front of you and just make an educated decision from there. No new debt. No new debt. No new debt for your parent. This is a hill I'm willing to stand on. If your parents want to buy a new car, they want to renovate the kitchen, they want to take the grandkids to Disney, that's cool, right? Because they earned it and they should be able to do it as long as they can pay for it in cash. At this stage in their career, no new debt. When they are 5, 7, 10 years from retirement, no. Because what happens is oftentimes those payments will follow them into retirement. And so while they may say like, oh, I'm going to have it paid off before retirement, or, I only have a couple more years of paying it off when I'm in retirement.
No, God, please, no.
find the money from somewhere else. The reason why I'm so adamant about that is because they're working on a fixed income. And the worst thing that you can have when you're working on a fixed income is a whole lot of debt. Or debt that's, I won't even say a whole lot. I'll just say debt that's unmanageable given the fact that it's fixed. Regardless of what else happened in there, that minimum monthly payment has to be paid every month, no matter what. What that does is that shrinks their financial cushion for the unexpected expenses that may come up, like medical stuff, for example, or catching a random flight to go see the grandkids because they felt like it, right? They got a whole bunch of debt. They can't take that flight. You don't really want to sacrifice that type of stuff, those types of experiences, Cash is king. This goes back to my point earlier that I was talking about where they're starting to make that transition from being debt reliant to more cash reliant. So hopefully by the time they get to retirement, they're definitely working within the parameters of the income that they're bringing in and not relying on new debt. But it's baby steps, right? You don't just flip the switch. Start a few years before. And so then by the time they get there, it's a walk in the park. It's a cakewalk, super easy is what I'm trying to say. No new loans this late in their income generating years. Bottom line, debt in retirement is like a leaky bucket. No matter how much water you pour in it, it's going to constantly drain out. Eliminating debt before retirement means that they can actually enjoy the fruits of their labor. They can actually put their money towards experiences and things that they want to rather than things that they have to. Freedom in retirement for your parents isn't just about how much they have, it's also about how little they owe. Now that they have a sustainable plan to eliminate their debts, let's catch them up on their contributions, especially if they're getting a little bit of a later start. Step 4, take advantage of catch-up contributions. This is a step that people just completely forget about. Catch-up contributions is the government's way of saying, hey, you almost finished, you know what I'm saying? You almost ain't got to work no more. So as a result, we gonna let you put extra money into your retirement account. Because you so close. You almost at the finish line. It's millennials out here just waiting to retire. And you almost there. You about to make it, is what they say. It's what the government is saying. It's going to allow your parents to put more money in their retirement account. Most of our parents don't even know this option exists. Let me break it down. Essentially, more money can be deducted from their employer-provided 401k or their personal IRAs, whether it be traditional or Roth. They deduct more now, so they have more later. Let's put some numbers behind it. So you and I can contribute up to $23,500 to our 401k. We can contribute up to $7,000 for any personal IRAs, whether that be traditional or Roth. However, your parents, if they are 50 or older, can contribute up to $31,000 to their 401k and up to $8,000 to any personal IRAs. The difference of the $7,500 and the $1,000 between the 401k and IRAs is the catch-up contribution, not catch up, right? You get it? That equates to thousands of dollars every year that they can save and put to the side for their retirement. They're essentially stashing that money away and letting it compound tax-free. If they save just an extra $500 a month, let's just say for the next 10 years, with an annual average return of 7%, that equates to $87,000 in retirement. Yeah, 87 stacks. 87 bands, 87 grand, whatever you want to call it. It ain't no chump change. And that's the power of catch-up contributions. So how can you help your parents take advantage of this opportunity? First, check if they qualify. And it's very simple. Are they 50 or are they younger? If they're 50 or older, they qualify. If they're like you and me and they're younger than 50, sorry, you can't do the catch-up. You got to stick to the 23,500 and the 7,000 like the rest of them. Next, help them adjust their contributions. Your parents set their 401k contributions 15, 20 years ago when they got their job, right? And probably never really changed it. Log into the 401k portal with them, or you can have them call HR and crank up those contributions to hit the new limit. Maybe they can't afford to max out like the full 31, right, for the year. That's okay. But even an extra $100, $200, or $500 a month will go a long way. Long way. For example, if they have a personal IRA, like a Roth IRA that's outside of their employer, they can actually contribute up to $667 a month per year, right? Which will equate to about $8,000. Remember, this is their last decade to load up on their retirement accounts before they actually stop working. It's game time. Explain why this matters. That money will grow tax-free or tax-deferred for the next 5 to 10 years. Most importantly, a cushion against unexpected costs later, like inflation or medical expenses. It also, most importantly, gives them options. If they're putting that money away today, they might have the option to actually retire early, right? Because they're letting that money compound for them. They can also potentially travel, see grandkids, all the things that our parents want to do. Period. You deserve it. Pat yourself on the back. Or simply just not stress about running out of money, because they deserve to have that as well. If your parents are feeling like they missed a boat, it's okay. It's all right. They still got time. Catch-up contributions are designed for people that get a later start in life when it comes to retirement, savings, and things of the sort. Even if they save nothing before the age of 50 or 55 or 60, they still have those 5 to 15 working years to build a solid nest egg. So with the right moves now, they can turn panic into progress. You'll be the one who helped them make it happen. Bonus tip, if they could set up automatic contributions, we gonna recommend that every time. Yes, mama, yes, daddy. Make it automatic, out of sight, out of mind, and into their future savings. The catch-up contribution will actually leave their paycheck before they see it. Step 5, plan for healthcare costs early. Nothing can blow up a solid retirement plan like unexpected medical costs. Right? You think you done got it all figured out over the last couple of months. You don't work with your mom, work with your dad, got it all together, then factor in healthcare costs. Don't shoot yourself in the foot, okay? Or then, want to hear something crazy? Fidelity estimates that a couple retiring at the age of 65 will need $315,000 to cover healthcare costs in retirement. When I read that number, I was like, that's a lot. That's a lot. And it's even more considering that they're working with a fixed income, you know? Sometimes I don't like America, and it's for these types of reasons, but I'm not. I digress. Let's get back. Here's something I learned while researching for this video, okay? Maintaining health insurance in retirement is a clusterfuck of confusion. And I mean that with every bone in my body, because through my research, I was talking to different relatives of mine who are actually in retirement, and they were walking me through how they actually have to go about getting health insurance, maintaining health insurance, paying for health insurance. And I was like, woo, I got a headache just listening to them. I can only imagine what they were dealing with, what they are dealing with. You know, I feel some kind of way, because having health insurance should be the simplest process in these states that are so-called united. Clock it. I ain't gonna go there. We gonna keep moving. It's intentionally confusing, but no worries. I boiled it down to a few general actions that you and your parents can take today. First, know when Medicare starts and what it covers. So Medicare essentially is health insurance for individuals that are 65 years or older, but it ain't free. Most people pay premiums for Medicare Part B, which is doctor visits, and Part D, which is prescription. Medicare also doesn't cover things like dental, vision, and long-term care. Are you shocked? Yeah, I was too. So your parents essentially will need to budget for those gaps. A lot of boomers think that Medicare is all covered, and it's not. So it's better they know now than surprise bill later. Next, look into HSAs or health savings account. If your parents are still working and they have a high deductible health plan, they may qualify for an HSA. Why is an HSA so good? It's because it's a triple tax advantage. What do you mean free? Money goes in, tax-free. Money grows, tax-free. So you're not taxed on the growth, right? Because of compound interest and all those things. Then when it comes out of your HSA to pay for medical expenses, it is also not taxed. 1, 2, 3, triple tax advantage. Oftentimes, HSAs can be invested like mini retirement accounts. But keep in mind, your HSA is for future healthcare costs. You can't take out money from your HSA and go buy a car. HSA is only used for medical costs and qualified healthcare expenses. It can be used in retirement to pay for things like gaps in your Medicare premium and things that Medicare is not necessarily going to cover for your parents. Even a few thousand in an HSA can cover an unexpected medical bill and essentially give you peace of mind, you know? It's definitely worth looking into. But again, the HSAs, they can have those while they're still working. That's the key thing. If your parents are already in retirement, they might have an old HSA. That's something to look into, but it's not something that they can actively invest in because they're no longer employed. Next, talk about long-term care. This can be a little bit uncomfortable, but it's oftentimes the most important part. I know I say that about all the parts because they all really important, but this is just as important as all the other parts that I said was very important because they all important. Okay, all right. Long-term care like assisted living facilities or nursing homes or either in-home care as well is not covered by Medicare. And it can get expensive, between $50,000 to $100,000 a year on average. Some is less, some is more, just kind of depends on where your parents are living. This is a time to gently ask, hey mom, hey dad, have you ever thought about what you would want to do if you needed full-time care? Gentle, okay. Soft, I mean cloud, so gentle. I mean Pillsbury, like Doughboy. I need you to be gentle. Pillow soft, soft, okay? All right. Would you want to stay at the home? This is you talking to your parent. Would you want help from family or professional care? This conversation can actually lead into a chat about long-term care insurance, which is actually a thing. However, keep in mind that getting long-term care insurance in their 50s and early 60s is going to be less expensive than if they're in their late 60s and older. As they get older, it gets more expensive. Finally, build medical costs into their retirement budget, into their retirement plan. A lot of people budget for groceries, for housing, and different things like that. But as our parents get older, inevitably, they may incur higher healthcare costs. It's important to include that as a line item in their retirement plan. Some things that you want to consider is any Medicare monthly premiums, right? Like once they hit the age of 65 and they have Medicare, is there anything that Medicare isn't going to cover and thus they have to come out of pocket for? Any copays, any deductibles, dental, vision, prescriptions, those types of things, you know? If it's planned for ahead of time, it's not as scary when it happens. Explain why this matters. Healthcare is the biggest wildcard expense in retirement. It can sneak up and eat through savings faster than inflation and taxes combined. But if you and your parents plan for it early, it becomes just another expense and not anything that's going to break the budget. The peace of mind this gives your parents and you is priceless. It's definitely worth taking that time to actually plan for it. No late night panics about medical debt or questioning whether or not your parents can afford a life-saving procedure, right? Like that's what we're talking about here, you know? Yes, the answer is yes. We always gonna find a way to make it happen, but it's better if you can plan for it. Here's the truth. No one likes talking about possible medical issues, but unfortunately, ignoring it won't make the likelihood of the cost disappear. Helping your parents now means that they have the care they need later when they need it most. You won't get stuck trying to figure out how to cover a $90,000 medical bill. Step 6, simplify estate and legacy planning. Your parents need a legacy plan. Now, some people are like, well, my parents don't really have any assets. They're not millionaires. They don't need bull crap. If your parents have any type of assets and liabilities, create a simple planning plan. This is a written plan that everyone is aware of that aligns with your parents' wishes. The legacy plan can include things like a will, powers of attorney, medical proxies, health directives, life insurance, the important stuff. If there is no written plan, shit gets messy, especially if you got siblings, they got sisters and brothers, you got aunts and uncles and cousins, and if your grandparents alive, like everybody got input and you're grieving, and don't put yourself through. I'm not telling you what I think, I'm telling you what I know. The family, unfortunately, was left to scramble, fight, and argue about what should happen or what mom and dad would have wanted. But the good news is that it can be prevented if you put it down on paper and make sure that it's updated as well. Trust me, it doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. Actually, that's another common misconception. Just a few simple things can protect your parents' legacy and save everyone a ton of stress later on. First, make sure they have a will. First and foremost, do they have a will? If the answer is, I think so, I remember they mentioned it, red flag. A will spells out who gets what. It makes sure that their money, house, assets, belongings, Go exactly where they want and to who they want versus letting the court decide. Keep the court system out of family business as much as human. They don't need a $3,000 fancy lawyer. Online tools can really help you and your parents create a will comfortably and affordably. But be sure that the will is enforceable and it's valid. Couple things to consider to meet those thresholds. The will is made by someone who is 18 years older or of sound mind. Now, oftentimes, your parents should be 18 years or older. But the other point is to make sure that they are of sound mind, which can get a little dicey if they have medical conditions that muddy those waters. The other thing you want to make sure is that the will is in writing. Verbal wills, hard to enforce in a court of law. Damn near impossible, should I say. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I did take business law in college. No, for real. And I aced it. That's besides the point. The other thing to make a will enforceable and valid is signed by your parent. It's witnessed correctly. Usually 2 witnesses, but again, that depends on the state that you're in. What happens if there is no will? I thought you never asked. Their entire estate, money, and assets could get stuck in probate for months, if not years. Not only that, probate can be expensive. So yeah, have the conversation, create the will, make sure that it has all the elements to be enforceable and valid, stick it in that in case of an emergency file, which we'll talk about in a second, and you'll set to go. Next, name beneficiaries everywhere. Retirement accounts, life insurance policies, and bank accounts, all of these need named beneficiaries. Why? Why is that important? Because these accounts bypass the will entirely and go straight to the named beneficiaries. Now, oftentimes the beneficiaries in the will that's named on life insurance policies, there can be like the same people, but just make sure that they're everywhere. Ask your parents, have you checked who's listed on your 401k or your life insurance policy lately? Is it still the right person? You'd be shocked to know how many people forget to update their beneficiaries after family changes, after grandkids are born, after divorces happen, after remarriages. Not only are the beneficiaries named, but are they the right people? Make sure your parents not giving their life insurance policy to a husband or a wife from 1999. Next, assign powers of attorney, or POAs, as I'm going to call them. There are 2 crucial types of POAs. You have your financial POA and your medical POA. As you would imagine, the financial POA is going to be the one that handles the money, the finances, right? It's a person that your parents have assigned to take care of their finances. The medical POA is going to handle medical stuff in the event that your parents are incapacitated. Be sure your parents pick responsible people, which may or may not be their favorite child. I'm just saying, I ain't trying to start no rifts, but I'm just saying. Because if your parents don't pick these people, the court will pick them for them. In some instances, the court can pick objective third parties when these objective third parties don't know your parent, right? If the courts pick, it's oftentimes not really what's in the best interest of your parent. That can mean that a stranger is making life or death decisions for your family. Finally, create a simple in case of emergency. Help your parents make a simple folder. And this can actually be digital, like in a notes app that the family has access to. It's on everybody's phone, share it. Whatever is the best method. The important part is just get all the pertinent information in one place. And this is what you call the in case of emergency file. What's in the in case of emergency file? It is things like bank account information, logins, passwords. Oftentimes your in case of emergency file, sometimes people keep it in like safes in their home or in lock boxes in the bank, right, for security purposes, because it's going to have some very pertinent information on it. You want to also be sure that the in case of emergency file has things like emergency contacts for your parents, any doctors, lawyers, financial advisors, as well as things like any prescriptions that they're taking, just all the important stuff that in the event of an emergency, you have it all written down and you don't have to keep it in your head, right? It's also going to include things like mortgage information or mortgage documents, any life insurance policy documents, wills, and things of the sort in case of an emergency. Any health directives, any DNR requests, all those types of things. This way, if something unexpected happens, you're not fumbling through drawers or trying to figure out and learn passwords. Like, you have everything you need ready to go. Explain why this matters. Creating an estate plan isn't about expecting the worst. It's about protecting your parents' wishes and giving the entire family peace of mind. Trust me, this gift of clarity, simplicity is one of the greatest gifts that your parents can leave behind. It's the last key step in making sure that your parents are retirement ready and their legacy is as secure as possible. Helping your parents prepare for retirement doesn't have to happen all at once, and it doesn't have to be perfect. The important part is that you start having the conversation and start taking the necessary steps to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And this video is a great roadmap to kind of get you started on that journey. Start small, keep it gentle, and keep the communication open. You got this. I'm sure of it. Your future self and your parents will thank you for it. You're not just helping your parents retire well, you're actually protecting your own peace of mind. Tap the like button if you learned something new. Share this with your parent. Subscribe for more ways to manage money intentionally.